While the full PC version of Final Fantasy XV will be released in March, SquareEnix has blessed us with a free benchmark tool that will let you know how well the game will run on your computer before you have to buy it. Before continuing, I just want to say, thank you SquareEnix, I really wish more games did this. Now, it turns out there are ways to tweak the game running on the benchmark to produce some really interesting results that might hint at what we can achieve when the full game releases. This is, after all, the LowSpecGamer, a channel where I like to push entry-level hardware to its limits and tweak game graphics to the ridiculous minimum. The free benchmark tool for the upcoming Final Fantasy XV, like in the description, has a limited number of presets for settings and a number of resolutions, but turns out you can tweak the way the game runs with a lot of detail using a tool made by modder Dr. Dexy, link in description. After you download it, all you need to do is to extract its contents into the install directory of the benchmark, usually in program files, SquareEnix, Final Fantasy XV benchmark. You can then use the light config file as a base to create a custom config file and load it into the benchmark. To load the file, we need to add some launch options into the game. To do that, find ffxv.exe, not the ffxv bench.exe, create a shortcut and open its properties. At the end of the target field, you can add a set of launch commands that I have added in the description, and if you're curious about all available commands, they are documented on the GitHub page for the tool. The first command must be directed at the location of your custom config file. The second determines the language of the game, and the third makes it full screen. And now, every time you run the benchmark from the shortcut, it will load the configuration file. Now let's get to the actual interesting part and tweak the configuration file a bit. Even on the lowest presets, there are a couple of things we can do. Display resolution controls the normal external resolution of the game, and render resolution controls the internal resolution, and this means you can drop the render resolution of 3D elements without affecting UI readability, which can provide a ton of extra performance on weak GPUs. Now if you want to play around with shadows, there are two options available. First, shadow distance scaling that controls shadow render distance. If you drop it to 1, you basically get no shadows around the player and a giant infinite shadow in a circle after a certain distance. Good start. Then there is shadow resolution, which controls, well, the resolution of shadows. Setting it to 0 crashes the game, but setting it to 1 pretty much kills all shadows all around, making everything look shiny and a bit weird, but providing quite a significant boost in performance. Finally, we have model Lod scaling and oh boy, if you set it to 1, this happens.
See you around.
That is her face. No, nothing is rendered correct. Oh god, is that how chocobos look right now? Oh god, that degraded quickly. Right, so here's what happens. In order to preserve resources, the game manages the number of polygons of different models depending on the distance to the camera. You know, like any regular LED system, but you seem to be able to use this variable to have some control on the number of polygons available for models, and the more things are on screen, the lower and weirder it gets.
See you around.
You do not have to go to these extremes though. Just dropping the variable to 10 makes it way more tolerable, while still severely limiting the quality of the models. How much of an impact does this have? My first testing PC consisted of a first generation i5-750, which is an old but still pretty reliable cheap quad-core, and the GT 1030, Nvidia's newest low-end GPU. Running the game on the light preset and 720p gave interesting results. With a score of 3742, the game managed to keep itself over 30 FPS even while traveling through the world or even during the combat scene. I ran into some freezes due to CPU bottleneck when loading new areas here and there, but for the modern game running on an old CPU and a cheap GPU, this is really impressive. Well done again, SquareEnix. If we apply the shadow tweaks, reduce the LOD to 10 and leave resolution untouched on 720, the game climbs to between 40 and 50 during most of the benchmark, and the CPU freezes seem to be almost gone. The overall score jumps to 4633. What an increase! This is very encouraging. Let's try something more extreme. I have here the same Xiaomi Pro laptop that I used for my Assassin's Creed Origins video. that comes equipped with a mobile i5 8250U and an MX 150, but we're going to disable the dedicated GPU and try to run the game on the Intel UHD 620, just to see how this will do on an integrated GPU with all the settings forced to the minimum and an internal resolution of 640 by 360. The game almost manages to maintain over 20 FPS in most instances. Not quite playable, but certainly more than I expected for an integrated GPU. Will this work on the full version of the game? I guess we will find out eventually, but one can hope. You can follow my videos, also as articles in ModMy, links also in the description, and thank you if you're a Patreon contributor who helps keep these videos coming.